The encountered night was cold, and the spaceport city of Heir Prime looked like a sea of neon lights under the endless black sky. Freighters came and went, their engines roaring like thunder, while travelers hurried across the landing pads with heavy bags and tired eyes. Captain Elias Veron sat in the corner of a quiet café that overlooked the runways, nursing a half-empty cup of bitter brew. He had just returned from a long cargo run through the asteroid belts, and all he wanted was warmth and silence. The café was almost empty. Only a few miners and traders scattered across the room. The air smelled of burnt metal, spice steam, and the faint tang of ozone from the docking bays. Elias leaned back in his chair, watching the endless movement of ships rising into the sky. His ship, the Wayfarer's Hope, was battered from the last run, and he knew he needed to make repairs before the next job. Credits were low, jobs were scarce, and he wondered if he could keep flying for another year. Just then, the door hissed open, and a tall woman stepped inside. She moved quickly, as if she wanted to be invisible, her hood pulled low over her face. Her coat shimmered strangely in the neon light, its fabric shifting like liquid silver. Elias raised an eyebrow, instantly sensing that she was not a local miner or trader. She walked up to the counter, her voice soft but steady as she ordered a steaming cup of starfire tea, a rare and expensive drink. The barista tapped at the register, then frowned. "Your credit chip is invalid," he said, his voice carrying across the cafe. The woman froze, her hands tightening on the edge of the counter. I can pay," she whispered, switching through her small satchel, her breathing quickening. Elias could see the other patrons staring now, suspicious eyes following her every move. She looked lost, almost desperate, like someone running from something. The barista sighed and shook his head. "No credit, no drink," he muttered, already pushing the cup away. Something about the scene tugged at Elias's chest. A memory of himself years ago, when he had been stranded on a distant moon with nothing but an empty wallet and a broken comms unit. Without thinking, he stood up, walked to the counter, and placed his last few credits on the counter. "Her drink's on me," he said, his voice calm. The woman's head snapped toward him, and for the first time he saw her eyes clearly. They were not human eyes at all. They glowed with a soft blue light, swirling like tiny galaxies, and for a moment he felt as though he were falling into them. She looked shocked, then suspicious, and finally, relieved. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying a strange melody, as if every word was part of a forgotten song. Elias shrugged. "Don't mention it. Everyone deserves a warm drink on a cold night." He tried to act casual, but he could not shake the feeling that something about her was unusual, almost dangerous. She took the cup in both hands and sat across from him, steam curling up between them like a living thing. "You are kind," she said softly, her accent wrapping around the words. "Kindness is rare in this place." Elias gave a short laugh. "You must be new here. Kindness is the only thing that keeps us from losing our minds." She tilted her head, studying him with those otherworldly eyes, as if she was trying to see beyond his skin and bones. "What is your name?" she asked. "Elias," he answered, sipping his drink. "Captain Elias Veron, and you are..." She hesitated, then whispered, "Serenia," as if the name itself carried weight. Before he could ask more, the door slid open again. A group of men in black armor stepped in, their boots heavy against the metal floor. They had no insignias, no names, only cold helmets with narrow visors. The entire cafe went silent, eyes lowering as the men scanned the room. Elias felt a chill creep down his spine. The woman's grip suddenly tightened on his hand beneath the table, her touch surprisingly strong. "Please," she whispered urgently, "act natural. Don't look at them." Elias frowned, confused, but he didn't pull away. The armored men paused, scanning each booth with sharp mechanical lenses. One of them turned in their direction, and Elias felt his throat tighten. But then a loud announcement rang through the port speakers, calling a boarding group. The men exchanged quick glances, then turned and left, their heavy boots fading into the distance. The woman let out a shaky breath, her hands trembling so hard that tea spilled onto the table. Elias reached across and steadied her cup. Easy. You're safe now, he said gently, but she looked at him with a strange expression, half fear, half curiosity. How did you know to help me? She asked, her voice low but intense. I didn't, Elias admitted. I just saw someone in trouble, and I've been there myself. For a moment, her glowing eyes softened, and something unspoken passed between them. Then she looked toward the window, as if expecting someone to appear out of the shadows. Elias followed her gaze and noticed a sleek black shuttle drifting near the edge of the docking bay. Its markings were hidden, but its presence was wrong to quiet, to deliberate. Serena's shoulders stiffened, and she whispered almost to herself, they found me already. Elias leaned closer, his curiosity now tangled with a strange sense of dread. Who's after you? He asked. She turned back to him, her voice trembling. If I tell you, Captain, your life will never be the same again. A stranger's secret café door hissed shut behind the black-armored men, leaving only the fading echo of their boots. For a long moment, the place stayed silent, the smell of skirt circuits and spiced tea heavy in the air. Elias sat stiffly, his hands still resting near Serena's, his eyes flicking between her hidden face and the shadows outside. She lifted her hood just slightly, revealing sharp silver lines running across her temples, glowing faintly like threads of starlight woven into her skin. Elias had seen many aliens in his years of flying, but nothing like this, nothing that made the hairs on his neck stand up. Those men, Elias said, lowering his voice, they were after you, weren't they? Serena's fingers tightened around the warm cup, her eyes never leaving his. They are hunters, she whispered, but not for themselves. They serve a family. Her words trailed off, as if the weight of them could crush the very air between them. Elias frowned, leaning in closer. What kind of family? She hesitated, as if deciding whether to trust him, her glowing eyes scanning his weathered face. Finally, she spoke, each word slow and deliberate. I am Serena Vather, daughter of the High Regent of the Orion Syndicate. Elias nearly choked on his drink. The Orion Syndicate. Even the name carried fear across the galaxy. They controlled star lanes, trade routes, fleets of warships, and more wealth than most civilizations could imagine. Stories of their power reached every corner of human space, often whispered in bars just like this one. And here, in front of him, sat someone claiming to be their heiress. A woman with glowing eyes and a silver-threaded cloak, sipping a drink he had bought for her. Wait, Elias said slowly, shaking his head. You're telling me you're some kind of alien princess? Serena's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. But it wasn't joy. It was bitterness. Not a princess, she said. A prisoner with a crown. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a hush. They don't care who I am, only what I can give them. An heir to their empire, a child born with my bloodline. Her words hit Elias like a punch to the chest. He had heard of dynasties forcing their children into ranged bonds, but he never imagined he'd be sitting across from someone living that nightmare. Why tell me this? Elias asked, his voice rough with caution. Serena's hands trembled again, but her gaze was steady. Because you were kind to me, and because I do not have much time. I need someone they would never expect, someone who owes them nothing, someone like you. Elias blinked, unsure if he had misheard. Are you asking me to be the father of your child? The words hung in the air, heavier than the smoke that cooled from the barista's broken heating unit. Yes, she said, the glow in her eyes flickering with something like desperation. I need you, Captain, before they catch me, before they lock me away forever. Elias leaned back, his mind racing. He was a freight runner, and nobody in the grand scheme of the galaxy. A man who barely kept his ship together and owed more than he could count. The idea of becoming tied to one of the richest dynasties alive was absurd, dangerous, and probably suicidal. Look, Serena, he said carefully, I don't know what game you're playing, But I'm not interested in politics. I just wanted to help with the drink. Serenia's face tightened, but she didn't argue. Instead, she whispered, "They are already hunting me. If they find me, they will take me away, and I will never be free again. Is that what you want?" Before Elias could answer, a low hum rattled the walls of the cafe. He turned his head toward the window and saw that the black shuttle outside had deployed its landing gear. Red beams scanned across the docking bay like knives of light. The miners at the nearby tables quickly gathered their things and slipped out through a side exit. Not wanting to be caught in the middle, the Brister muttered something about troublemakers and shut down the counter, leaving Elias and Serenia in the corner booth, the glowing eyes of the heiress fixed on the door as it slid open again, and the armored man stepped back inside. "Weapons ready, you have to choose now," Serenia said, her voice low but urgent. "If you walk away, they will take me, and you will be safe. But if you help me, you will never live a normal life again." Elias stared at her, the silver threads across her skin pulsing like veins of light. He thought of his battered ship, of his empty credit account, of the quiet loneliness that had followed him from one end of the galaxy to the other. He thought of the hunters, their black armor shining like knives, and he thought of the glowing-eyed woman who sat across from him with a plea in her voice. The hum of the shuttle grew louder, a shadow falling across the window. Somewhere outside, a loudspeaker boomed, "By order of the Orion Syndicate, surrender the fugitive immediately." Elias's pulse hammered in his ears. He had only meant to buy her a drink, just a simple act of kindness, nothing more. But now he realized the truth. His life had already changed the moment he placed those credits on the counter. Serenia reached across the table and touched his hand again, her voice trembling, but full of fire. "Captain, I can't go back. I would rather die than live as their prisoner. Will you help me escape?" The cafe's lights flickered red, signaling a lockdown. The door sliding shut as the hunters moved closer. Elias looked into her glowing eyes once more, and for the first time in years, he felt something. He thought he had lost purpose. The decision weighed heavy in his chest, but deep down he knew he had already made it. He stood, pulling Serenia to her feet, his jaw set. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me," he said. The cafe went silent again, the hunters raising their weapons, and Serenia's breath caught in her throat. The night at Vera Prime had begun like any other, but now it was about to change both their lives forever. A dangerous interest. Wayfarer's hope shook as it broke free from the gravity well of Vera Prime. Elias gripped the controls with steady hands, though his mind was anything but calm. The black-armored hunters had not fired a single shot at the cafe, but their silent rival had spoken louder than any weapon could. Who were they really? And why did this strange woman draw such attention? Serenia sat in the co-pilot's chair, the silver patterns on her skin glowing faintly in the dim cockpit light. Her eyes darted to the windows every few seconds, as though she expected to see pursued ships closing in. Elias finally broke the silence. "All right, Serenia, time to explain. Who are they? Why are they after you? And why drag me into this?" Her hands tightened around the steaming cup she still held, as if it were her last comfort in the galaxy. "They are seekers," she said quietly. "They work for my family. They are sworn to bring me home, no matter what it costs, no matter who gets hurt." Elias frowned. Most people would be glad to be found by family. Her lips twisted in a bitter half-smile. "My family is not like yours, Captain. They are rulers, and I am the last daughter of the High Regent. The blood of my house runs through me. To them, I am not a person. I am a vessel, a tool to continue their empire." Elias leaned back, the chair groaning under his weight. "So, you're saying, your royalty and your people want you back. Why not just go? It sounds comfortable." "Comfortable," she said sharply, her glowing eyes flaring brighter for a second. "You call it comfortable to be forced to bear an heir for a man I did not choose. To have my life dictated by council and crown. To never again walk freely under strange stars." Elias had no answer. He had seen enough of slavery and forced contracts in the outer systems to know the pain behind her voice was real. Yet the thought still rattled around in his skull. Why pick a broke captain with a patched-up ship when she could have anyone? As if reading his thoughts, Serenia said, "They will never suspect you. You are ordinary, and that is exactly why I need you." He frowned. "Ordinary? Thanks for that." She leaned forward, her silver eyes glowing softer now. "Do not mistake me, Elias. Ordinary to them means invisible, and invisible is safe." Suddenly, alarm screamed from the ship's console. Elias cursed under his breath as the radar lit up with red dots. The black-armored hunters had taken off, and their ships were closing in fast. They locked onto US, he muttered, flipping switches. "We're not going to outrun them. Not in this bucket." Serenier placed a hand on the console, her glowing lines flaring brighter. And to Elias's shock, the ship responded. Engines roared louder, the old vessel surging with speed it never had before. "What did you just do?" Elias asked, his voice caught between and fear. "I woke up your ship," Serenier whispered. She was sleeping. "I spoke to her in a language she understands." Elias blinked. "Ships don't talk. Machines don't listen." "What are you?" Serenier turned her glowing eyes toward him, her expression unreadable. "We were once called the architects of stars. We built worlds when your kind was still drawing on cave walls. But now my people have lost their way. They hunger only for power, and they will not stop until I am theirs." Elias swallowed, the reality of her words pressing down on him like the cold void outside. He had heard rumors of the Orion Syndicate's mysterious rulers, whispers of beings older than human civilization, but he had never believed them. Now, one of them was sitting right beside him, clutching a cup of tea he had paid for with the last of his credits. The ship shuddered as a plasma bolt skimmed the outer shields, the cockpit filled with a sharp alarm tone. "They are firing warning shots," Serenier said, her voice steady. "Again, they want me alive. But they will not hesitate to destroy you." Elias's knuckles turned white as he pulled the ship into a sharp dive, weaving between drifting freighters. "Well, that's comforting," he muttered. "So I'm just collateral damage. Great. You can still let me go," she whispered. "If you do, they might let you live. But if you keep me here, you will be hunted as well." Elias glanced at her, her glowing eyes filled with something that looked like sorrow and defiance at the same time. "You saved me once already," she added, her voice breaking. "Do not undo it now." The ship jolted again, a direct hit shaking the cabin, sparks showering from an overhead panel. Elias gritted his teeth, his pilot instincts kicking in. "I don't know what you're dragging me into, Serenia, but I'm not the type to hand someone over to people like that." Her lips parted, a breath escaping her, half relief, half wonder. "You are full, Captain," she whispered, "but perhaps you are the full I was searching for." Elias didn't answer, his focus locked on the glowing red indicators closing in on their position. The stars ahead stretched into long lines as the ship's jump drive roared to life. The hunters opened fire again, light tearing through the dark, and just as a blast was about to hit, the Wayfarer's hope vanished into hyperspace, leaving only silence behind. The Billionaire truth stars outside the cockpit stretched into silver rivers as the Wayfarer's hope slipped into hyperspace. Elias kept his hands firm on the controls, his jaw tight, his eyes darting across the trembling gauges. The ship was old, patched together with spare parts and luck, and yet tonight it had leapt faster than it ever had before. He could still feel the faint warmth on the console where Serenier had laid her hand, the silver lines on her skin glowing like living lightning. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the hum of the engines. Serenier sat in the co-pilot's chair, her eyes closed, her fingers still wrapped around the cup of starfire tea. The glow in her gaze flickered, dimming as if some unseen weight was pressing down on her. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer now, like wind through glass. "They will not stop, you know? Once the seekers find your trail, they follow until one side is gone." Elias frowned, his curiosity wrestling with caution. I still don't get it, he said. Why me? You said you're, what? Some kind of princess, an heiress. That's way above my pay grade. Serena's eyes opened, and this time he saw not just light but storms within them. My family rules the Orion Syndicate. She said, our wealth is beyond counting. Our fleets stretch across 12 star systems, and our word bends entire worlds. Elias let out a low whistle. So you're telling me I just bought tea for a woman who owns planets? She shook her head, her silver cloak shimmering with the motion. Not owns, inherits, she corrected. But that is why they chase me. My family demands I bond with a man chosen for me, a man who will control everything through me. But I refused. Her fingers dug into the metal arm of the chair, leaving faint glowing marks where she touched it. To them, I am a resource, not a person. I am the last bloodline of the Vather, and they will use me to breed heirs whether I consent or not. Elias felt his stomach twist. He had seen cruelty before, but there was something worse in the idea of being trapped in luxury while your freedom was stolen. Still, one question burned in his mind. Why ask me? Why not find someone powerful? Someone who can fight your family on their own terms? Her expression softened, but her eyes never left his. Because power attracts power, she whispered, any man who seeks me for wealth or throne is no better than those who hunt me. But you paid for a stranger's drink with your last credits. That is why I know you would not cage me. Elias opened his mouth to reply, but the ship lurched again. The stars outside stuttering as the jump drive struggled. Warning lights flashed. Red and angry, they're tracking us through the jump lanes, Serenier said quickly, her eyes narrowing as though she could see beyond the hull. They should not be able to do that. But they can. It means their technology is not of this galaxy alone. Elias blinked. Not of this galaxy. What are you saying? I'm saying, she whispered, that the Syndicate is no longer just Orion. They have made alliances with something far older, something that feeds on entire civilizations. Elias felt his throat tighten again. He thought of the tales told in dark bars, of silent fleets that erased colonies without firing a shot, of stars that went dark overnight. He had laughed at them, calling them space ghost stories. But Serena's glowing eyes held no humor, only a quiet grief that made him believe they will enslave your people. Captain, they will enslave your people too, unless someone stops them, she said, her hand trembling but her voice steady. And that someone is me, Elias muttered, shaking his head. You've got the wrong man, Serenia. I haul scrap. I'm not a hero. You underestimate your kind, she said, almost smiling again. Humans are unpredictable. You resist control. You survive when no one else can. That is why they fear you. And that is why I must ask you to help me, not as a captain, but as the man who will father my child. The words landed heavy again, heavier than any missile strike. Elias felt the breath catch in his chest, his thoughts scattering like sparks across the void. He stared at her glowing eyes, at the silver light moving beneath her skin, and he realized she was deadly serious. She was not just running from hunters. She was running from a fate that could change the balance of the galaxy. And somehow, in the middle of a tired night on a forgotten spaceport, she had chosen him. The ship gave another shudder, the jump tunnel around them rippling like liquid light. Elias slammed a hand on the console. We can't run forever, Serenier. Not in this ship. You need an army, not a washed-up pilot. An army begins with one, she said, her voice calm. My people believe I am weak. They are wrong. With your help, I can choose my destiny. But I need your answer soon, Captain. Very soon. Elias looked out at the swirling blue tunnel of hyperspace, feeling the weight of stars pressing in on every side. He had spent his life running from debts, from enemies, from promises he never kept. Now fate itself was demanding he stop running. Behind them, the sensors beeped again. The red dots were still there, growing closer. Serenier placed her glowing hand on the console, her voice low and melodic as she whispered in a language Elias could not understand. The ship shuddered once, then surged forward with impossible speed, light stretching into ribbons. Elias gripped the controls tighter, his heart pounding, his mind spinning with the words that echoed in his skull. She's the heiress of the richest empire in the galaxy, he thought, and she wants me to be the father of her child. But before he could even ask what that meant, the console lit up with a warning. The hunters had followed them into the jump, and there was no turning back now. The Propazalthi ship rattled as if the universe itself wanted to tear it apart. Blue light streamed across the cockpit, bending and twisting like liquid fire. Elias gritted his teeth, his hands firm on the controls, the jump drive whining under. The stress, the red dots on the radar had not vanished. The hunters were inside the tunnel too, chasing them through the folds of space. Impossible, Elias muttered, sweat running down his temple. No one follows in a blind jump. No one. They can, Sir Heir whispered, her glowing eyes locked on the screen. They learned it from them, from the ones who came before. Even my kind. Her voice carried a weight that unsettled him more than the shaking hull. He wanted to ask what she meant. But then the ship's alarm screamed again. A blast of energy tore past their vessel, so close it rattled every bolt in the frame. All right, Elias growled. You wanted me to help you. Then help me. What can you do? Sir Heir closed her eyes, her silver veins pulsing like lightning, her hand still pressed against the console. For a moment, the entire cockpit glowed with a strange blue light, and Elias felt his ship respond as if it had just woken from a long dream. Engines roared louder, panels lit up with strange new symbols he had never seen. What in the stars? He muttered. This ship doesn't even have a hyperflex drive. How are we moving this fast? I told you, Serenia said, her voice steadier now. I can speak to the machines. They're not just metal to me. They're voices. They listen. They obey. Elias blinked, his stomach tightening. You mean you can control ships with your mind? Serenia shook her head. Not control. Connect. It is part of my bloodline. Part of what makes me valuable to them. She spoke the last words with quiet anger, as if they tasted bitter on her tongue. Elias let out a low whistle. That explains the hunters. If you can bond with ships, no wonder they want to lock you away. You'd be the most powerful queen in their empire. Serenia's lips trembled. Yes, but it would not be me ruling. It would be the man they choose. I would be nothing but a vessel. My child would be their weapon. The ship jolted again, and Elias caught sight of a glowing spear of light tearing through the hyperspace tunnel behind them. They are gaining, he said, his voice sharp. We need a plan, and fast. Serenia reached into her cloak and pulled out a small device, a crystal sphere that pulsed with blue light. This is the seed, she whispered. It is a code, a map, and a key. It can awaken fleets long thought lost. It can restore what my family has hidden. Elias's eyes widened. A key to fleets. You're saying you can wake war machines older than your empire? Yes, she said, her voice trembling. But I cannot do it alone. The seed will only respond to one who is not of my blood, one who is human. That is why I need you, Elias. The captain felt as though the floor had dropped out from under him. This was madness, he told himself. This was beyond smuggling crates of ore or dodging pirates. This was playing with the fire of gods. Why me? He demanded again, his voice sharp. Out of everyone in this cursed galaxy, why pick me? Serenia looked at him with a softness that cut deeper than any blade. Because you did not know who I was. And yet you gave without asking anything in return. Do you not? See, Captain, that is the proof I needed. A heart that gives freely. That is what my child must have. Her words sank into him like seeds themselves. Small, but impossible to ignore. The ship shuddered again as another blast slammed into the shields. Sparks showering across the floor. Shields at 60%. Elias muttered, reading the flashing red warnings. Sir Heir stood, her cloak sliding to the floor, revealing more of the glowing patterns across her body. Her skin shimmered with light. Alive, as if her blood itself carried the power of suns. Elias stared in silence, his thoughts racing between and fear, Look at me, she said, her voice now firm. Commanding yet desperate. This is what they want, this power, this bloodline. But I will not give it to them. I will not let them breed me into a weapon. I will choose my own path. And I choose you. Elias froze, his hands still gripping the controls. He wanted to laugh, to shout, to run. But the ship jolted violently again. The hunters firing without hesitation. Outside the window, glowing. Beams cut across the darkness. One striking a cargo vessel nearby, splitting it open like paper. Debris spiraled past them, and Elias swore under his breath, pulling the ship into a desperate roll. Do you see now? Serenier whispered fiercely. They do not care who they kill. They only care about me. If you leave me, they will still burn everything around us until they find me. But if you stay, if you help me, we can fight them. Elias's chest tightened. He had spent his life avoiding fights, avoiding causes, avoiding responsibility. But now the galaxy itself seemed to be pulling him into something larger than he ever wanted. And there was that glowing woman beside him, looking at him with desperate hope, offering him a chance at something greater than the empty runs and forgotten ports he had called life. The ship shuddered again, alarm screaming louder. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, his jaw set, his hand gripping the throttle. All right, Serenia, he said, his voice steady. Tell me what I need to do. Tell me what this seed is. Tell me how I'm supposed to help you. And maybe we'll both live long enough to regret it. A faint smile touched her lips, but her glowing eyes were still full of storm. Then listen closely, Captain, she whispered, leaning closer, because everything you thought you knew about the galaxy is a lie, and the truth begins with me. The ship shuddered once more as they vanished deeper into the shimmering tunnel. And behind them, the hunters followed like shadows that refused to die. The chase begins. Hyperspace tunnel stretched around them like a river of fire, bending and twisting as if alive. Elias felt the old ship shudder with every surge. The panels flickering with strange blue light. Behind them, the red dots on the scanner pulsed like angry hearts, closing the distance no matter how fast he pushed the throttle. They are still on us, Elias muttered, his jaw tight. I don't know how, but they're glued to our tail. Serenier stood in the middle of the cockpit, her silver-lined skin glowing brighter with each passing moment. She closed her eyes, raising the crystal sphere in both hands, whispering in a language Elias did not know. The sound of her words was strange, like thunder echoing through water. Suddenly the ship's lights flickered, the hull groaned, and Elias felt the engines surge with new strength. The radar screamed. The hunters fell back for a heartbeat, then surged forward again. They are using shadow drives, Serenier said, her voice sharp. It is forbidden technology, stolen from those who dwell in the dark between galaxies. That is why they can track us. Elias's hands danced across the controls, pulling the ship into a tight roll as a plasma beam sliced past, tearing a hole through the hyperspace stream. The tunnel rippled like a wounded creature, energy waves crackling against the shields. Elias cursed. If they hit us again, this ship will tear apart. Serenia's eyes glowed so bright they lit the cabin. Then we must do something they cannot follow, something human. Elias gave a short, bitter laugh. Human? You've got the wrong guy. I'm just a cargo pilot. I run ore and scrap. I don't fight empires. But even as he said it, his hands moved with sharp precision, flipping controls, rerouting power, pulling every last spark of thrust from the aging engines. He had been flying through asteroid belts since he was a boy, outrunning pirates, dodging corporate patrols. If these hunters wanted to chase him into hyperspace, then they would find out what it meant to play chicken with a man who had nothing to lose. The ship bucked hard as Elias pulled her into a spiral, diving toward a collapsing gravity rift. The hyperspace tunnel around them twisted violently, bright shards of light breaking apart like shattered glass. Are you insane? Sir Enyer shouted, clutching the chair as the ship shook. You will tear us into atoms. Elias grinned grimly, sweat dripping down his brow. Maybe. But they'll tear first. This old ship may be ugly, but she knows how to dance. Another plasma bolt screamed past, grazing the hull. The shields flared bright, alarms howling, and smoke poured from one of the panels. Elias slammed a fist against the console. "Come on, girl, hold together. Just a little longer." The ship groaned, metal vibrating. But somehow it responded, twisting at impossible angles, slipping through cracks in the tunnel. Behind them, one of the hunter ships miscalculated the curve, smashing against a wall of light, vanishing in a burst of fire and shadow. Serena's eyes widened, the glow within them flashing like lightning across a stormy sky. "They will not stop, not until I am back in chains," she whispered, her voice trembling yet fierce. Elias glanced at her, his hands still dancing across the console. "Then maybe we make sure there are no chains left for them to drag you with." She stared at him, her lips parting, as if she had never heard such words before. For a heartbeat, she looked almost human, almost fragile, almost free. But the radar screamed again, more dots appearing, more ships. Elias muttered, his stomach twisting. "They called reinforcements." Serenia closed her eyes, clutching the glowing seed tighter, her body trembling as if the energy inside her was too great to hold. "They have found me faster than I feared. It means their pact is deeper than I thought," she said, her voice cracking like glass. Elias snapped his head toward her. "What pact? What are you talking about?" She opened her eyes, and for the first time, he saw not just light, but endless darkness swirling inside them. "My family made a deal with the Ancient Ones, creatures that sleep in the void between galaxies. In return for power, they promised my bloodline. And now they want me back." Elias felt his heart pound harder. He thought of the stories he had heard in forgotten bars, whispers of ships that vanished into nothing, colonies consumed by silence. He had always dismissed them as myths, tales told to frighten rookies and children. But now, staring into Serena's glowing eyes, he realized the stories might have been warnings. He realized he was caught in something bigger than any freight job, bigger than any debt, bigger than any single life. The ship shuddered again, the view outside flickering as the jump corridor twisted under the pressure of the pursuing ships. Serenia placed both hands on the console, her voice rising in a song that was not made for human ears. The symbols across the screen shifted, glowing brighter, the ship answering her call as if it had been waiting for this moment. Elias felt power surge through the controls, his ship leaping forward with a scream. But the hunters still followed, relentless shadows in the blue storm. "Where are we going?" Elias shouted above the roar. Serena's voice rang with strange harmony. "To a place they cannot reach, a place only the seed remembers. But you must hold the course, Captain. You must trust me." Elias glanced at her again, his chest heavy, his heart caught between fear and something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. He had stumbled into this by accident, just by buying a stranger a hot drink. But now he was being asked to gamble his life, his ship, and maybe the fate of humanity itself. The ship shuddered harder, and outside, the tunnel twisted one last time, tearing open into a blinding white light. Elias tightened his grip on the controls, his jaw locked, his heart racing. Whatever lay on the other side, there was no turning back now. The choicest white light swallowed everything, and for a moment Elias thought he was dead. The cockpit around him dissolved into a blur of color. The stars stretched and folded, and his stomach felt like it was being pulled inside out. Then, as suddenly as it began, the chaos ended. The wayfarer's hope shuddered once more, then steadied, floating in a silence so deep it pressed against his ears like a weight. Elias blinked, staring out the viewport. There were no stars, no planets, no familiar constellations. Only an endless blackness broken by distant silver threads of light that curved like rivers across an invisible ocean. The ship floated in a place that felt older than time, a place that was not space and not void, but something stranger, something hidden. "What did you do?" Elias whispered, his voice rough. his hands still gripping the throttle even though the ship was no longer moving. Serenia stood by the console, her silver-lined skin glowing brighter than ever, her face pale but determined. "I took us off their map," she said softly. "We are in the Forgotten Veins. The empty pots between galaxies, a place where their machines cannot follow." Elias looked back at the scanner, and his breath caught in his throat. The red dots were gone, vanished as if the hunters had never been there. For the first time in hours, there was no pursuit, no warning sirens, only silence. Relief washed over him, but it lasted only a second. He turned to Serenia, his voice sharper than before. "Now, you need to tell me the truth, all of it. Because I don't stick my neck out for people unless I know what I'm up against." Serenia slowly lowered herself into the co-pilot's chair, her glowing eyes dimming to a faint shimmer. She looked suddenly tired, fragile, as though the act of guiding the ship had drained her. Still, she lifted her chin and met his gaze. "I am the last true heir of the Vader line. My family controls the Syndicate, but their power is dying. They promised the Ancient Ones my firstborn. They want me to carry a child for a man I despise, and through that child they will bind the old powers to their rule." Elias felt the words settle like a storm in his chest. He had never cared much for politics, never cared who ruled which system. But he knew one thing: the Orion Syndicate was not a family, it was a machine that crushed worlds and chewed up lives. And now, because he had paid for a stranger's drink, he was part of a game that stretched across the stars. Serenia leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to hum with hidden power. "I escaped with the seed. It is the last fragment of the old technology, the key to awakening ships that sleep beyond the edge of the known galaxy. But it will not answer to me. It was designed to respond only to human blood, only to your kind." Elias shook his head, trying to process it. "So let me get this straight. Your empire made a deal with something out there, and they need you to have a kid to keep that deal alive. And if you don't, they'll hunt you down. And you think the answer is to hand me this glowing crystal and call me your partner?" "Yes," she said firmly. "You are the only one who can awaken the seed, the only one who can give me freedom. And together we can build something different, something they cannot control." Elias felt his throat tighten. The words echoed inside him, louder than the hum of the engines. He had spent years drifting from job to job, running from debts, from past mistakes, from a galaxy that never seemed to care whether he lived or died. Now here was a woman, a stranger with glowing eyes and a name whispered like a prayer, telling him he was the key to saving civilizations. It sounded insane. It sounded dangerous. It sounded like a death sentence. And yet, deep in his chest, he felt something stir, something he had not felt in his hope, purpose, a reason to keep going. The ship creaked as it floated through the black rivers of the Forgotten Veins. Elias could see shapes moving in the distance, enormous shadows gliding slowly through the dark. They were not ships, not anything he recognized. They were too large, too silent, too ancient. Serenia's voice trembled as she spoke. "Those are the Ancient Ones. They're not alive as you understand life. They are older, hungrier. And if my family awakens them fully, every star will dim, every world will burn. They will feed until nothing is left." Elias swallowed hard, staring at the shadows beyond the glass. One of them shifted, its size impossible to measure, its outline too vast for his eyes to follow. A faint hum filled the cockpit, deeper than any engine. A sound that vibrated in his bones. "They already feel the seed," Serenia whispered, holding the glowing sphere close to her chest. "They're calling to it. They want it back." Elias turned his chair to face her, his voice sharp. "So this is it. You're asking me to tie myself to you, to help you bring a child into this mess, to stand against an empire and something older than the stars?" "Yes," she said again, her voice calm, but her eyes bright with unused tears. "I cannot fight them alone. And if I am taken, it will mean the end for more than just my people. It will mean the end for yours too." Elias felt the weight of her words press down on him, heavier than the gravity wells he had flown through. He thought of the miners in the café, the way they had looked away when the hunters entered, the way fear had silenced them. He thought of the empty bunks on his ship, the friends he had lost, the debts he can never repay. And then he thought of Serenia, glowing softly in the darkness, holding out a chance at something impossible, something dangerous, something that could change everything. The radar flickered again, faint signals chasing them even here in the void. Serenia's voice broke the silence. Decide quickly, Captain. They are coming closer, and the seed is waking. It will not wait forever. Elias took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the console, his eyes locked with hers. In that endless black sea, hunted by shadows and haunted by his past, he knew the truth. His life had already changed. The choice was already in his heart. Now he only needed to say it aloud. And once he did, there would be no going back.